Thanks for listening to Live Forever Young Radio. Nowadays, communication comes in many forms, and being able to effectively communicate your needs can sometimes be challenging. Today on the show, Bob and Rollie discuss a great technique known as nonviolent communication, or NVC, and how it can help you and loved ones deepen relationships through effective communication. They share an easy way to implement NVC with a strategy called OFNR, or OFNR, that can help anyone learn how to communicate and understand the needs and feelings of themselves and others and identify resolutions easily. So sit back, relax, and get ready to live forever young.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bob Gilpatrick. I'm here with Rollie Culp, and you are watching and listening to Live Forever Young Radio. Rollie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Bob. How you doing,
Great.
man?
I'm doing really well. I'm really happy that we're going to be doing this topic today on nonviolent communication. And as people that help others live forever young, we realize that if people have really excellent communication skills, it tends to reduce anxiety for themselves and for the person they're communicating with. And this is very important because anxiety causes your body to release too much cortisol at the wrong time.
Right.
And that's the stress hormone. And it's going to then create inflammation, right? And inflammation is going to create disease.
Right.
And so a lot of people in this day and age, especially in 2021, kind of started in 2020, there's a lot more tension between people. And this is a very timely topic for giving people some techniques on how to kind of take the edge off, and instead of creating conflict with their communication, to actually be able to have life-giving communication that can help people connect in a very heart-centered type of way.
Right. And I'm actually excited to go over this topic, too, because over the last 10 years that I've worked with you, I have not only been shown, but also been practiced to a lot of the nonviolent communication that you've learned over the years. Actually, one of the key things that allows us to work as a team is that which you bring to the table in regards to this particular topic. I never actually really asked you, and I know you have a lot of experience in it, but maybe you could let me know, or let everybody know, what it is, how much experience you have, because I know you've talked about NVC a lot, and you've actually taught it to me, but I'm not quite sure, what you've done before that, too.
Yes, so going way back to when I was, 18 years old, when I went off to college, I studied psychology and education and health science, and then later got a master's degree in social work. And in a social work degree, a lot of the courses and practicums are communication skills, counseling, helping other people improve their communication skills. And in addition to that, I've attended different institutes for neuro-linguistic programming and Ericksonian hypnosis and heart-centered therapy. And in regard to nonviolent communication, I actually went through formal training, coursework for nonviolent communication as well. So it's been really enjoyable with the nonviolent communication. It's probably the most effective technique that I've learned. And it was created back in the 1960s by a man named Marshall Rosenberg. And he was using it for numerous different things, but one in particular was helping with racial integration. So if you go back to the 60s, that's when it really started to begin to have racial integration, and it required therapists and teachers to help facilitate the success of that. And this was one of the places where nonviolent communication was born, was out of those therapeutic interactions in racial integration.
Now, you said that you were doing stuff like this since about 18, learning social work since you started. And how old were you? I should know this math-wise, but how old were you when this came out in the 60s? And did you learn it then, or is this something that you kind of just learned more recently?
When it came out in the 60s, I would have still been a young teenager, and so I didn't learn it back then. It's been about 3 years now, so I learned it right around 2018.
Okay.
Is when I first learned it.
And so, I'm sorry.
We were lucky. We saw, actually, it was looking at a website by a famous podcaster, JJ Flazanes, and we opened up her website, and the book was there on her website.
Oh, wow.
And so I saw it, and I was like, wow, that looks really great. And I started to investigate it, and then later started to study it with a formal teacher.
Another great reason to watch podcasts all the time.
Yeah, there you go.
So with the nonviolent communication that you've studied, you said this is one of the most effective ways that you've ever used in the years you've been studying this type of thing?
Yeah, going all the way back, even with what I learned in formal university, social work school, this was for me the most effective technique, because it really helps you to change your focus away from trying to fix things for people to really understanding their feelings and needs and helping them to feel better and to make a communication life-giving. So at the end of the communication, everyone feels better, and hopefully you also accomplish what it was that
like a resolution.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're getting what we were looking for, is a
resolution, and you actually feel better as a result. So when you look at the 4-step process of nonviolent communication, that there's an acronym that I call OFNR.
Right.
OFNR.
Yes, this is what you taught me. It's very helpful.
OFNR. Yeah. And so this is one of the things. This acronym is not what Marshall Rosenberg teaches, but each letter has a word that goes with it,
right,
and a lot more information. But I wanted to be able to remember it in sequence, so I was like, okay, what does OFNR spell? It spells a word, OFNR. Yeah. So there we have it. So
this is the nonviolent communication technique, including OFNR, which is technically already there.
Right.
Now, the one thing that I was thinking about, because of what we do and the people that we talk to, and a lot of the times when people call in or when they write in, they already are calling with a conflict or calling with an issue. And sometimes they're very clear about what they need help with, and then sometimes you got to do a little digging. And when I have used this particular technique in speaking with people on the phone, it has proved very fruitful. And also what it has helped me in my life to do is actually reduce the anxiety that comes with having a communication with a person that may somehow turn into a conflict. And that's one of the biggest things that I've taken from what you've showed me. And we know that we don't want anxiety because, as we've talked before on other shows, anxiety equals cortisol.
Right.
And cortisol equals inflammation.
Yeah.
And like we've said a million times, inflammation is the root of many, many diseases.
Yeah.
And with inflammation comes lots of other problems, mentally, physically, health-wise, long-term. So I think it is important that we not only do physically what we can do for our body, but use a technique like nonviolent communication to make it less anxious when we have to go out and interact, especially now that we're reacquisitioning into social life with COVID kind of, not, I wouldn't say coming to an end, but getting a little more under control, getting the vaccine out there. So we got to remember what it's like to communicate again.
Yeah, and I think, just one example that I've seen is people that go out to a restaurant now, they are experiencing new management, new employees, many of who don't have experience yet in being a server or a manager. And so people that are used to a certain level of attention and courtesy from professional wait staff are not getting that. They're getting a brand new person who hasn't been trained yet, but because the workforce has dispersed itself, a lot of the people that are coming into the service jobs are brand new. And so it's very important for the customer to be able to be patient and understand this and communicate with the people that are working at the facility in a way that creates a generative, happy place. Because a lot of times people will say, well, it was a great restaurant and the service was great, right? Or they'll say, it was a great restaurant, but the service was really bad and it kind of ruined it, right?
Right.
Well, in this type of case now, it's more going to be up to us, the customer, to create the environment, to create the conversation, to create the atmosphere, because you're dealing with inexperienced people. And so we have an opportunity to have a big effect on them by showing them by example the right way to communicate.
Gotcha.
And not the right way, but a way that tends to create connection.
And reduce conflict. Because telling someone who's fairly new at a job that they might need to pay more attention to something could be an uncomfortable conversation. You're not their manager. So in order to do that in a way that wouldn't offend them, but will get you what you want, which is my drink or some food or maybe just a little more attention because I'm looking for some ketchup, which there is a shortage on right now. So that might not be their fault. Don't get mad at them if they can't get you a ketchup. But that's the type of thing that could be an uncomfortable conversation. And that's not just out at the restaurant. That's with the workplace. You have a coworker that you might not agree with on some things, but the ability to have an open communication is very important, especially in this day and age when there's so much conflict with what people believe here and people believe there.
Yeah, and a lot of it is learning a new way of listening. And it's important because sometimes when people are listening, they're actually not totally engaged, or they've got their own preconceived notions that are being enacted even before the other person's finished speaking.
Right.
And quite often you hear somebody say, well, let me finish.
Right.
Let me finish speaking. And this is the O in OFNR, which is observation or observing.
Right.
And it's listening, but it's also more than just listening. It's being present with your whole body and being able to observe and let the other person express themselves as fully as they can. And instead of looking to interrupt with a solution, look for what the person is actually feeling, which is the F in OFNR. So to observe without judgment.
Right. Take an outside million-mile view.
Yeah.
Not how it's affecting you, but how it's affecting that person.
And
how they feel.
And being present with them and trying to see how they feel.
Okay.
And so once you have listened and the person's laid out what they want to say, you can then say something to them that will either confirm or elicit their feeling. So you say, wow, I heard what you said, and it seems to me that maybe you're feeling da-da. You're feeling angry.
Right.
You're feeling disappointed.
Right.
Now,
whatever it is.
Right. And it's just what you think, okay, but it's not necessarily what the person's feeling, but opens the dialogue in a way that says, I'm concerned about your feelings.
Okay.
And people, that's what people want. They want to make it so that they feel like they've been heard, they've been listened to, and they've been understood.
Okay. So basically what it is it's basically your way of letting them know that you've heard them by identifying what it is that they're feeling. Instead of just saying, well, what do you want me to do about it? Or tell me what you want. You're opening a dialogue that says, okay, so you're saying this, which makes me think that you feel this way. Yep. And then if that's not the right way they're feeling, they'll be able to...
They'll correct you.
They'll correct you. They'll say, well, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed because I was expecting to come home and have something ready or whatever it is.
And so one of the very helpful things is that in Marshall's books and in other books that others have written about the topic, they'll give you a list of possible feelings.
Okay.
And so in this particular case, they'll give you a list of feelings likely to occur when our needs are being met. And it breaks it down, and there's a lot of them. You might be feeling affectionate, alert, delighted, energetic, right? And then feelings likely to occur when our needs are not being met. Agony, disappointed, annoyed, disconnected. And for each of these categories, there's numerous feelings that are subcategories. So under agony can be anguish, bereaved, distressed, hurt, miserable, that kind of thing. And so as part of learning NVC, nonviolent communication, you want to become fluent in the language of feelings.
Right.
So you want to be able to put your finger on feelings, know that there's all different derivatives of different feelings, and you yourself have this fluent command of the world of feelings. Right?
That's sometimes hard.
Yeah, and so it not only is helpful for yourself, identifying your own feelings, but in your communications. And
Right.
so once
once you're looking at the feelings and you get the feeling down, whether or not you're right when you say, this is how I think you're feeling, and then the person either corrects you or goes forward from there, that's going to help you understand what needs to be done.
Understand what their need might be.
Right, correct.
What their need might be.
Right.
Because the need is something that is going to help with the feeling that they're having.
And that's the N in OFNR.
The N in OFNR is a person's needs.
Okay.
So as the one who's skilled in NVC, you might say to the person, well, okay, so you're feeling annoyed, and it seems to me that maybe you need ... Okay? And at that point, you also have an opportunity for the person to say, that would be great, or, well, what I really think I need is this.
Okay.
Right? And so now you're getting closer to a resolution.
Right.
But you're also making connection by showing empathy, right? I'm empathizing with you by guessing as to what you might need. Now that's very respectful, because it's like you were saying, Rollie, I'm not going, well, what do you want me to do?
Right.
It's like, it seems maybe you need.
Gotcha.
Right? And now the person who's receiving this communication then is like, okay, this is a connection. This is real. This person really is interested
in helping or figuring it out.
Make a connection with me.
Right.
And then in the R part.
Okay.
of
OFNR. OFNR.
Is an R is for request. Okay?
Right.
And so a request can be made by either party. So one person can directly say, I'd like to request, or I want you to do. But if that's not forthcoming, the person who's learned in NVC can say, it seems to me that maybe if you requested this, that I could respond like this.
Okay.
Now, a request needs to be respectful.
Okay.
And it needs to be reasonable.
Right.
Because if someone's requesting something that you absolutely cannot do,
then you'll never resolve it.
It's going to pull the string out of this whole OFNR.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to work. So again, learning the skill of how to frame a reasonable request.
Right.
Step one. Step one, we can make this reasonable request that is going to help to fulfill this need, which is going to make me feel differently.
Better,
It's going to
hopefully.
It's going to resolve in some small way, or perhaps completely, this feeling that I have of anger towards this situation. Okay? And so that's it. Observe without judgment, right? Then help identify feelings, help identify needs, and then help in the construction of a reasonable, respectful request.
That could help resolve it.
No, absolutely.
A lot of R's in that statement.
Yep. That's good.
That's
good.
easy to remember.
And so this is, Rollie, and I think you've felt this too, is when people use this type of communication, it just kind of softens everything, right? It's just like the person that you're talking to just feels more relaxed and has kind of a general readiness to believe that things are going to be okay if we can communicate in this way. And we know that having a feeling that things are okay or are going to be okay is extremely important, because if you're not of the feeling that things are going to be okay, you're in anxiety, your heart beats differently, the signal to the amygdala is different, the signal from the amygdala to the frontal cortex is different, signal from the frontal cortex to the heart is different.
All different.
And you have very little heart rate variability, which we discussed in the program on inner balance.
Yes,
The inner balance from HeartMath.
Yep, the show we did called Positive Mind, Positive Health is where we go into detail about how that actually, that connection from the brain to amygdala to the neurites in your heart, how that all can actually have an effect.
That's right. And this technique goes hand in hand with it because when people are communicating in this way, they have confidence, they have a sense of peace, and a general readiness to believe that things are going to be okay.
Now, we've talked about the stat before in many shows, one of them being dealing with anxiety and depression in trying times, but we talk about how most of the time, Americans specifically, think things are not okay.
95% of the time.
95% of the time.
Right.
We're of the belief that things are not okay.
Exactly.
So that only leaves 5%.
That's right. And so
Positivity.
this type of communication that's nonviolent, that's also called compassionate communication, okay, is one of the ways that we can help each other to change that 95% and make that number lower and make the number where we believe everything is okay much higher.
That's what we need.
Right. And now this works in many different types of situations. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It works in interpersonal situations with your family and with your friends.
Yeah, just a quick aside on that. I'm getting married soon. Congratulations. And
Good.
I've been with my fiance for 18 years. I know, should have done it a long time ago. But this has given me a lot of time to practice NVC with her. And to be honest with you, as it's only about 2 weeks away from the wedding, there certainly has been some times that maybe she's felt like I haven't understood how she feels. Maybe I think that she doesn't understand how I feel. But to be personally honest, this is one of the things that I've done, is I've said, look, it looks to me like you feel that I'm not helping as much. So that probably makes you frustrated. So I think the need here is for me to step up a little bit more, and that's a completely reasonable request. And that's actually OFNR.
Yeah.
I've used that.
Right.
And it's
wonderful.
It's really helped to dispel the situation that
Right.
could probably turn into some fiery, horrible argument.
Right.
And we don't want that.
We don't want that because that means things are not okay.
Right.
And then when you're stuck in this loop of things are not okay, that's when you begin the stress response that results in this extra cortisol and results in inflammation.
Right.
Okay? And with this show being Live Forever Young, we don't want that.
No.
A big part of living young and not aging too fast or getting sick is to keep your anxiety down.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's one of the best ways to stay alive longer.
And you mentioned earlier, Rollie, this works in the workplace also. You have the same type of dynamics happen with coworkers, a person who's a manager and a person who's reporting to a manager. Very, very helpful, particularly for the managers to know how to execute this OFNR.
Right.
And we also use this with customer service.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, as I did with my fiance, we've had people call in that weren't necessarily mad at us, but they were in a certain mood, and we had to definitely identify what that was coming from, help them maybe even understand where those feelings could have been coming from, or even what those feelings are, because sometimes people call in upset about certain things that happened in their life, and we're sitting here, we talk about supplements. That's not going to cut it. We need to be able to, as a customer service team, help the people that call in, even if it's just with getting in the right frame of mind. Because again, anxiety, that's going to create inflammation. That's going to lower your life here. We're live forever young here. We want to live as best we can for as long as we can. So by having that ability to use this in our customer service experience, it not only helps resolve a conflict, but helps make the person on the other end feel better physically, because they're not as anxious. And when you look at how this can actually work with over the phone, it relates to social media. Nowadays people go online and they say whatever they want because they don't consider the feelings of the other person on the end of the other computer. And if people who were big with social media, Instagram, Twitter, whatever the case was, might think twice before posting something and use the OFNR, it might actually lead to a little bit more helpful, peaceful communication and dialogue online. Because right now, I'm sure with the news and what people don't agree on, one of the biggest breeding grounds for this type of bad feeling is social media. I mean, there's kids get bullied from school. This can be taken to all parts of life. You know, as a child, to be able to teach this kind of thing to a child and let them learn how to communicate very effectively with someone of their own age that may have been bullying others, may have been not knowing why they're bullying others. If you could kind of impart this onto younger minds, it would only be helpful.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely, Rollie. And, I think in regard to myself, I was talking to a gentleman on the phone maybe about a month ago, and he was really upset. And he had talked to somebody else who wasn't quite getting the connection with him because he was so upset. It was hard to figure out. And so I started listening to him, and I was like, okay, so it seems to me like you're feeling upset, and is it that you're upset about something, or what is it with you? It's like, are you okay? And right away, quickly, it's not me. My wife has stage 4 cancer. And he was so upset when he called in, he wasn't even able to get that across until the right question was asked, right? And at that point, you can begin then to empathize with the person and gradually help to identify what need there might be. And in this case, it's a need for both people. Right? You want to, if in a situation like this with the wife going through chemotherapy for stage 4 cancer, she desperately needed a nutrition product to help her stay healthy and not have muscle wasting, which is what 60% of the people that die from cancer die from muscle wasting.
Right.
So we have a product that works for that helps people gain muscle weight while they're going through chemotherapy. So this was a need for her, but equally important, the gentleman, he had a need to be able to manage his stress and his anxiety and his fear. And this is where it's acceptable for us to say, hey, it sounds to me like you might need a little bit of help in reducing your anxiety over this. Have you watched our videos yet on the emotional freedom technique?
Right.
Which we've talked about
a
before.
lot, and it's very good. Check it out on Boomer's YouTube. Sorry.
And have you learned to do the ultimate mind calming exercise, right?
2 very important techniques.
And also when someone is very sick, quite often, they also become very impatient and can be rude to their spouse, and sometimes extremely so, especially if there's anoxia involved. And so would you like to hear a little bit about a communication technique in a book you can get called Nonviolent Communication? Could be very helpful for you. Learn to do some tapping, use this techniques in these books in communicating with your wife. And in this way, a great body of work like Marshall Rosenberg's can be used in a very specific situation, even today, 60 years later.
Very effectively.
Right, to be able to help someone on the other end of the phone. And, of course, also if they come to visit us at the office, the same type of technique is very helpful. Quite often I'll also even take notes, when I'm speaking to someone and saying, well, it's this and this and this. You write everything down because it may be that you need to identify a feeling in regard to numerous things.
Yes.
And you don't want to lose track. You want to make sure you cover everything.
Right.
Because if you don't, you might miss the most important thing.
I agree. And see, it's, in the end, really, I mean, it's all about trying to not only help the person, but give them some information and tools that they can use to not only help themselves and others, but take a look introspectively at what it is that they might need. Maybe the person is angry because they don't know what they need, or they don't take enough time, like in the case with the guy you were talking to. He's so worried about his wife that he's probably never identified for himself what he needs. And what he needs is some help. you know? And when you have someone there that can help identify the need, possibly resolve it, and then request or listen to his request, that makes a whole game changing of a difference, man. It's a big game changer.
Yep. So, Rollie, that's the overview. If people want to learn more about it, they can get Marshall Rosenberg's book. There's actually an Institute of Nonviolent Communication that has their own website. And
then there's this one that we've been working with, right?
Yep, that's the companion workbook that goes along with the book. So if you want to take it further and become a practitioner, this is a great workbook. And there's also many, many people that are certified to be teachers of nonviolent communication. And you can find those through the Institute. And we can put the link in the down below and let people see that, and they can also get the book there.
Yeah, we can definitely do that in the bottom of the blog in the important link section. It's all the way down at the bottom. I had a couple people telling me in the last shows they weren't there, but they are. But they're just all the way at the bottom of the written part on liveforeveryoungradio.com. In the blog post, we'll have a list of important links, and this will make sure is on there because, like we said, in the end, it's all about helping people realize what they might need, how we can help them. That's what we're here to do.
Absolutely. So, Rollie, thanks again for being here with us on Live Forever Young. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to Live Forever Young Radio. And we'll see you on the next show.
Thanks for listening to Live Forever Young Radio. Check us out at liveforeveryoungradio.com.